Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Clutch Dust Show. Today we talk to Charles Posh. He is with Sidetracked Productions, kind of up there in the thumb of Michigan. And we kind of talk about everything he has going on, from his announcing jobs to the stuff he does with Dirty Hooker Diesel. It's a diesel shop up that way. Charles, he has his own podcast. Go ahead and like his Facebook page too, as soon as you get done with this interview. And as well as we're going to talk about the future of Bacon Bits. We actually sat down with Fill-Rite today, and we kind of covered everything that we want to do in 2020 and 2021 and beyond. There's a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to be doing with Fill-Rite here in the off season, so I guess let's hop to it.
Very cool to see here, the Bacon Bits ride.
Green light time. Green flags are out. Dusty Price, the Bacon Bits Mini. Dusty Price, Gilmo, Indiana. Bacon Bits.
However you want to get it started, Charles, let's make it happen.
All right, do you tell me when you're rolling, and we'll do her.
Oh, we've been rolling this whole time. We're actually live. Oh, yeah, we're live all the time here.
You ambush people the same way that we do.
Oh, heck yes. That's why. Well, you got to get the actual. What is it? You actually got to get the real, genuine person on the other line.
Well, we've done plenty of that, and there's been plenty of times when some of that genuine stuff has also ended up on the editing room floor to be shared later when statutes of limitations expired.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, no, it was, well, we'd heard, I guess as far as Sidetracked becoming a thing, we'd heard and seen it was Ray Taluki who was searching for people to do it, to kind of start pulling Radio Network. And at the time they were firing that deal up, I was just coming off, my divorce, my first wife. I wasn't in, and I was urged by a lot of people, hey, do this, you could do it. I wasn't in a place to be able to, just time management wise and having the infrastructure and doing it the way I wanted to do it. It wasn't a thing. But a year later, Drew and I were real tight, and we'd been spending a lot of time together and having conversations, and every night we'd be in his place or mine, whatever, and fiddle farting around and just talking. And I looked at him one night and I said, you have the knowledge. We've been announcing together. I know pulling. Why don't we try this? And there it was. And every decision that we ever made together, as far as that business went, whether it was phone call or in person, there was never any debates about what the name was going to be or what the logo was going to be or what was the approach going to be. It was just like, hey, you want to do it like this? And it's like, yeah, just all these snap decisions. And I don't think we ever anticipated it would snowball into what it did become.
Right. Well, and that's for the very first time that I'd met you, I believe. I mean, I knew who you were. I knew kind of what Sidetracked was just a little bit. But I think we were at Bowling Green in 2014, 2015, and I stopped you because, you had that pretty nice white crew shirt on. And I think you had one of your kids with you or something at that time. And
all three of them were there.
Yeah. Well, and that's great. And, for them to kind of see, kind of what Dad does, I think is always pretty cool. But you guys were kind of in your infancy at that point, or were you not?
At that point, that was about a year and a half deep at that point, into what it was. And we were there with Eric Pruitt and Tiger Pullman, and had something going back in Champions Row, and had some drivers that were set up to come over and sign autographs for people and chat with us. And I forget who all went through the chair. I wound up doing a lot of photography and kind of productions behind the scenes stuff. I didn't really get on the interviews. Drew and Tiger did most of that, and Eric was doing a lot of the engineering. Cause I want to say we were live streaming it at the time we were doing it. I don't know. We had Tabitha Damaris come through the seat, Jeremy Roberts, Gardner Stone, I forget who all else, but it was cool. It was a cool day down there, and my kids, who have grown up around my involvement in the sport, they've been to some high profile stuff, but not to that level. And they really got their eyes opened as to what the top tier of this sport is.
Well, and I think Bowling Green really brings that out in people too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anywhere you look, you're going to find it. And you don't even have to pay attention to the spectacle on the track. Just walk the pit area, and, I mean, your eyes are going to fall out of your head with all the stuff you get to see.
Right. Well, and that's where, at that point or whatever, I'd met you, but I still hadn't met Drew yet. And I think it actually took me like another year or so to finally meet Drew. And he, I don't know. I mean, God bless Drew. He just has that. I mean, you just look at the guy and you almost just wanted to give him a hug. I mean, yeah, we miss Drew and everything else, but Drew just looked like the kind of person that I don't know whether that I needed the hug or whether he needed the hug. I mean, he was just such a lovable character, and that's who he was. He was a character.
Definitely a character, and yeah, he was going to give you one whether you wanted it or not, and you better be ready.
Right. Well, and that's where I tell my girlfriend. I tell her all the time. It's like, I wish you could meet Drew, but then at the same time, I'm like, well, I'm kind of glad you didn't, because he'd probably hugged her a little too hard.
Well, you know.
Oh, dang it, no, but. So you and Drew kind of got that whole deal going, and then I mean, you guys have really made that into a, it's a legitimate business now.
It is, and I'll be the first to admit it. In the wake of his passing, it's been fits and starts for me to keep it alive, so to speak. It's been a bit of a challenge, and there's plenty of people out there rallying behind me and pushing me to get back in the saddle. And actually, I'm hoping being on with you tonight will be a little bit of that spark I need to get some podcasts started again. But yeah, it did, and there was some serious thought given to, do we make this our legit day job? And for him, for a couple of years anyway, it pretty much was. Couldn't be for me for various reasons, but yeah, it did become a very legitimate thing, and I never would have imagined. I still see myself as, I guess, first of all, a frustrated puller, and that's nobody's fault but mine, for the choices in life I've made to not be there yet. Secondly, an announcer, and thirdly, this commentator that people actually want to hear from. It's not a role or a position I sought or seek, but it seems to be there, and it's hard to ignore.
Well, and my podcast equipment, it's not going to give your voice justice, but you actually have one of those radio voices. I mean, you enunciate, you're clear, and then to have all the tractor pulling motorsports knowledge behind it, that's what makes you cool.
I'm glad you think so, because I hate the sound of my voice. I could name 100 people that I'd rather listen to than me.
No, not at all. So, but that's where, I mean, I deep down, I mean, I remember the night you called and said, that we'd lost Drew, and you'd let a lot of us close to you guys know, but we all know, and this is like me and Andy Gerball and all, we all know that we would be upset with you, and Drew would be upset if you were to quit.
Yes. Yeah, that's a thing. That's definitely a thing. Grief takes its own form for different people in different ways, and for me, I guess it's not even a grief thing. It's just what I wanted for the podcast. It was a certain sound, a certain attitude, a certain production value, and it doesn't come from one guy. I can't carry that by myself. I don't have. Maybe I do have the personality, and I shrank from it. I don't know. But I don't feel like I'm that guy by myself. It's better being for lack of a better reference, within the pulling community, within our niche in motorsports. Our podcast was always supposed to be the morning drive shock jock version, and you can't do that as a solo act. Not even Howard Stern can do that as a solo, and he's got people around him. And where do you find that other guy that could do what Drew did behind the microphone and sit in the studio week after week with me and make that kind of magic. It's not there, so I have to dig deeper and find it within myself, and it's tough. I fight it. It's tough.
Well, and I learned in the few times that I've met Drew, just talking to him, I mean, he was goofy, but he could bring the goofy side out in whoever was across from him. He just had that knack, you know, to make something into a story and whatnot. And you have that too. But I myself, as well as everybody else around you, we know that you're going to do good things with it. And to kind of bring things up to, you know, to today, you've actually got a brand new job. And I want you to kind of dig into that a little bit, as well as what that's also going to mean for the podcast in the future.
I think there's a lot of times that are going to come from this. I went to work about 6 weeks ago for Tony Burkhardt and Dirty Hooker Diesel, and Tony has been the biggest supporter that the Sidetracked property ever had. Really, after the first year, actually, well, even from day one, and we didn't know it. We hadn't even approached him yet about a sponsorship opportunity, and he jumped in, dove in big time, and trusted us and believed in us big time. And this summer, an opportunity came up to go, or this fall, an opportunity came up to go and work for him. And I jumped at it, and I hope that I'm returning some of the favor that he bestowed upon me, and to further my passion within motorsports and getting to be involved in some of the stuff that I get to do up there on a daily basis now, as a legitimate day job, not just something I do nights and weekends when I come home or in the wee hours of the morning. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I see no reason why that would not continue.
But then, I mean, you also get to go to these polls and talk about it. You know, you actually get to talk from the heart, you know, behind the mic. Like, you have everything going for you.
Yeah, it was a lesson, whether he knows he taught it or not. That was a lesson taught to Drew and I both, and I'm sure you picked up on this as well because you've heard his voice so many times, by Tom Hartzell. Tom always educated his audiences without insulting them, and it's a fine line. It's a tough balancing act, but he gave you the whys and the wherefores and the tech knowledge, but also made it accessible so that next person growing up would learn. And I certainly heard it as a kid and picked up on that. I didn't grow up in a motorsports family, never mind a tractor pulling family or a farming family even. Everything I knew, this is the battle days before internets and podcasts and stuff like this. You either got a magazine in your mailbox or you went to an event and you listened. That was how you learned. And he was a good teacher. And I often think at an event at an event, podcast, I won't say this because we're kind of R-rated there, but at an event, I like to think of, you know, there's some 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid who's, you know, swinging his feet on a bleacher out there listening to what I got to say, and this is the first time he's ever seen this, and all he knows about is whatever I'm going to tell him. I'm not going to lie to him. I'm telling the truth, and hope that he gets the same infection that I did.
Well, right, and that's where, you know, I believe, I mean, there's a lot of motorsports announcers out there. I mean, we could talk about tractor pulling in particular, that either they're so repetitive that they actually, you know, can bore the audience. They're too particular about what they're talking about, and the audience still doesn't know what they're talking about. You know, whether it be different sizes of turbos or superchargers or whatever you want to say. I mean, there's got to be a fine line there.
There's an absolute fine line, and it's one I struggle with constantly. You know, next year will be my 20th year, and part of the reason why Drew became a part of this deal was I was at a point, whatever it was, 6-7 years ago, where I felt like my presentation, my announcing style was becoming very rote, very stale. And I was looking for something to change it up. And I said, well, you know, the big events usually have multiple announcers. Why can't we bring that sound to a smaller scale venue and make it work and have that interaction between each other? Because I knew he knew what he was talking about. he would have to develop his announcing style, which, it took him a couple of years, as it did me when I started out. But I knew he had the knowledge to be able to carry the conversation and make it relatable and entertaining for the crowd, and a spice of humor in there. So I said, hey, you want to try this? And he was nervous as heck the first few times. But as it went on, I found what I was looking for, is that mold breaker sort of a thing. And yeah, it's very, very tough to avoid the little catchphrases or the rote repetition, or the last thing I want to do is roll into an event and have the guys in the pits who are on a circuit with me or have to hear me multiple times a summer. If those guys roll their eyes when I pull in, it's time to retire.
You don't just, as far as announcing gigs and all that, you don't just stay in the in the mitten either. I mean, you travel around a little bit.
Yeah, this summer I've been as far east as New York, far west as Illinois, and a couple of weeks from now, I got to go all the way down to Mississippi. So yeah, I've traveled. I'm not as well traveled as some of the guys, but yeah, I get around, and I need to anymore. That variety really helps keep the spark going to go somewhere else and see something new, see some new people. It helps keep me interested and keeps the fire going.
Well, and I'll be honest, you're actually one of the few people whose opinion I value, but I see a lot of stuff. Yeah, I know it. But I mean, and looking at the in the Sidetracked Facebook page and stuff, I mean, you don't always just share like Grand National style vehicles. I mean, you actually have a passion for antique tractor pulling as well.
Yeah. I mean, anything within pulling, but even motorsports beyond. But yeah, I would say, and Drew would definitely say this if he was here now, our favorite scene, so to speak, our favorite people to hang out with really is the antique crowd. They have a darn good time doing what they're doing. And I know I read, see all the comments about, oh, paint dryers, boring, yada, yada. I get it. And no matter how hard we work at trying to explain, demonstrate, extol the virtues of what these guys are doing, if you're in it for the spectacle, it's not there. But if you've ever put your butt in the seat and tried to do it with those guys and understand what they're doing within their own context of the sport, I hands down believe this, the best drivers are antique pullers, bar none. And
I'll
they
agree
have
with
a
that.
heck of a good time doing it.
Right, and I'll agree with that. Well, and that's where I don't have a problem with antique tractor pulling at all. I mean, actually, I'm one of the few younger people that actually enjoys watching it. But there's a lot of guys that say, oh, we only need to just watch, 4-engine modified tractors. I need to get rid of antique tractor pulling and anything else. But antique tractor pulling, that is where our sport started. I mean, like the antique tractor pulling, at one time, that would have been Grand National level.
That's true. And you would be shocked at the caliber of individuals who are engaged in it in the wintertime for something to do.
Right. Well, and that's where, I've even made mention to my dad before. I said, Dad, like our tractor pulling, with what we do with bacon bits, I was like, it's kind of a summer thing. I was like, what happened if we would, go out and get an older John Deere or an older Ford and try to hit up some indoor antique pulls. And he was like, well, I'm all for it, but when are you going to have time for that? And then, I kind of had to put my tail between my legs.
Well, there is that.
yeah, unfortunately. Well, just like how we got this conversation started, unfortunately, I do have to work to pay my bills.
Yeah, as do I. But, well, here's your opportunity, and shameless plug. The St. Jude's raffle tractors, you can have your choice of a 715 cubic inch John Deere G, unstyled, or a 540 cubic inch Farmall M. You need to get your tickets. If you go to pulloff.com, go to thehookmagazine.com, or any of those on Facebook, please buy tickets. You have your choice of red or green this year, and all of it, 100% of this money is going for the St. Jude's kids, and can't push that enough. So please you and I both have an opportunity to win one of these if we can't afford to buy one.
Yeah, well, Lord knows I can't afford that. But no, I'm pretty sure I can afford a raffle ticket.
And as can I, and I've got money down on both, and I'm a bleeding red guy, but you know what? If that G comes my way, I'm going to love and cherish that thing.
Right. No, I get it. And that's where, so you've got your announcing gig going, you've got Sidetracked, you've got a pretty steady job working for a diesel truck guy.
I hope it's steady.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
there's EPA's trying.
right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the DHD guys are gonna keep you employed. If not, I'll lobby for you. So you've got all this stuff going on, and then, as I say, you and I were kind of in a nice little group text and group chat and stuff like that. We're always talking about, the current state of pulling, where we think it's headed, where we'd like to see it go, what rules we'd like to see changed. I mean, basically, it's a nice little way for us to blow off some steam from different things we hear throughout the day, throughout the week, what have you.
It's probably good we don't share too much of that.
Oh, for sure. But that's where, Charles, I guess I kind of want to have a short little conversation about, where do you see the current state of tractor pulling? Where do you see it going? Like, to say, what is that five-year plan? Like, do you see the Grand National Diesel Supers? Do you see them even sticking around? Is that just going to be an exhibition class? I mean, for that 30,000-foot view of tractor pulling today, where do you see that, and where do you think you see it going?
I don't know that I see drastic differences at the very top level of the sport. I think that the people who are committed to doing what they're doing, and I know we've had anecdotal evidence from some of those who have been diehards that they're ready to step aside and step down. I still believe that from a sanctioning body level, the top levels, the top echelons of the sport really are going to remain sort of unchanged for the next 5 years, I'll say. What I do see continuing to happen, and I haven't been able to pinpoint where the pendulum is going to stop and start swinging back the other way, is all of the fractionalization that has gone on in the last, I'll say, 15 years, where guys are, if they're not happy with their class, they're trying to start a new one that meets their needs, whatever the heck those are. And if they don't get the new class, then they form a new organization, a new sanction, a new promotion. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that there are fewer pullers than there were. I've been watching a lot of early to mid 90s video of NTPA. And I suppose it's on me to do some due diligence here and actually run some counts. But I don't feel like there was more pullers back then than there is now. I do feel like there was more pullers back then concentrated within fewer classes, because you didn't have all this wild differentiation, especially within the single charger diesel classes. I mean, it's gotten ridiculous how specialized and regionalized and fractured that has become. I'm looking for that turning point, that moment where the pendulum starts to swing back and we start to see some conglomeration and some guys coming back together around a more common set of rules that allows some travel, bigger counts of competitors. I don't know how long. And south of the state line, I'm in Michigan, south of the state line, this is a big deal. There's a lot of clubs down there where they're offering one class and one only. And they're lucky if they got 10 guys in it. I don't think that's sustainable beyond 10 years. And many of them are coming up on the 10-year mark of that little endeavor. And I think they're going to have to come back to the fold and reintegrate with some other groups and come to some common understanding, and then we'll start to see counts grow again, and the sport will grow. I do not believe the idea that there's fewer pullers. I don't. I just see it as much more fractured than it has ever been, and we're kind of at that point right now where in the next 5 years, I think we will start to see some of that reintegration take place. At least I hope so.
Right. Well, and that's where I would like to think that, there's the same number of pullers. I mean, there's even more tractor pullers today than I think there probably was 10, 15 years ago. But just like you said, they're way too spread out. I mean,
yes.
There's a lot fewer Grand National pullers, but you could say that, there is 10 times as many quote unquote brush pullers.
I might even challenge you on the Grand National point, because let's go back to Slice in Time 1994. You've got one national organization, NTPA, and at the time there was 8 or 9 national championships you could win, and within that, 2 or 3 of those national titles you could win were just a weight break within a common type of equipment, super stock, pro, and modified, multiple weight breaks. Today, there's 2 national organizations, and I'm not deliberately ignoring outlaws, but they're a thing to themselves too. You got 2 national organizations, and I don't know what, on any given year, 24, 25 different guys who could lay claim to the title of I'm national champion in a particular class with a particular organization. Is there few of them, or are they just spread on the wind like seeds? I'd have to do some number crunching, but I think it's probably pretty close.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And that's where, I don't know, I guess myself growing up, I mean, we went to a lot of Hoosier State pulls, but you couldn't tell the difference between a Hoosier State pull and a regional pro-national hook. I mean, it was basically the same guys, but then I really don't ever remember much about the Grand National events, to where I always thought, that they were necessarily bigger names, but at least as a little kid, I always thought, there was 10 times the number of vehicles there. But as I say, I was too young to really make that assumption. But I don't know.
Well, there's some truth in that, and what you're sensing and what you remember. And I remember the same sorts of things. And where I go back to is Stitch in Time back in the early 90s. There really wasn't a huge difference between, not a massive gap like there is now, between a Grand National and a competitive state level tractor. There wasn't. And they would intermingle. If a GN guy was local or was in town, they might show up and hit your state show, and you were excited and pumped to see him because you didn't get to see him that often. Nowadays, the GN level has continued to be what it always was, I think. Well, I have another thought that goes with that, and I won't get into it. At this point, but the state level stuff has fractured and shattered like a pane of glass hitting the floor. And I feel like if you're in Illinois right now, Ohio, this is just anecdotal experience myself. If you're in Illinois, Ohio, New York, you think state level pulling rocks, everything is great, it's wonderful. If you're in Indiana, if you're here in Michigan for sure, you lament it and you go, what happened?
Right. Well, and that's where, as far as, I mean, I guess we can not necessarily jump topics or change subject or whatever, but there's a lot of pullers, let's say, nobody in particular, to where they would like to modernize the tractor pulling, the rules. I mean, as far as the vehicles, because honestly, I mean, we have, 30, 40-year-old technology that we're running. I mean, whether you're talking about a supercharged V8 or, a pro stock tractor, yeah, the technology is, like the latest, greatest turbo, but I mean, they don't closely resemble the farm tractor you buy off of the dealership lot today.
True.
And that's where there's a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of grumbling, at least as far as us pullers go, to where there's not enough money in tractor pulling now how it is, would you actually attract more pullers by making it more expensive, yet thinking that you're saving money by allowing, let's say, electronic fuel injection?
I'm gonna be the first to say no, and I've got two reasons for saying so. One is, of course, the emotional response to that, in the sense that our sport has a purity to it, and also an abstraction. And what do I mean by that? The abstraction is that whether it's 300 or 330 or 350, I don't care what it is, it's the same length of track everywhere you go. The dirt is always variable. The sled is always variable. If you find a means to have an extra 600 horsepower and traction control that lets you go 385 one night, the next night, the sled's going to clamp you.
Right.
It's a self-correcting system all of the time. The other piece, the emotional piece of it, is that I like the idea that it's about the driver. It's about seat of the pants. It's about hand-eye coordination. It's about reacting to what the track is giving you, that you're a driver and not a tuner. I have no problem with tuners. I'm a big drag racing fan, as we've talked.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea that I could get in the seat and do the same thing, maybe, that you can, without having to plug a laptop in, and that it's predetermined and it's already all set. The second you drop the hammer, whatever's going to happen is already, it's software loaded. And if it doesn't work, well, aren't you just a passenger?
Right. Well, and that's where, I've got the same problem. I mean, I like the idea of having all the electronics because it does allow the easier tuning of turbos, pro chargers now. And even I told you, if EFI or any kind of that electronic stuff ever became legal, I'd be the first one to build a 950 cubic inch, naturally aspirated motor on nitrous. I mean, yeah. And to me, some of that kind of does excite me. You could have a vast array, and then get rid of the only V8 rule for the mini rods. I mean, allow somebody to bring in, a V12, a V16, if you can dream it, do it. And that's where I talked to a lot of European pullers about all this. And they're like, we have an unlimited mini rod class. Like all the V8s over there, they all run 1871s, 2 mags. They're producing well over 3,000 horsepower. But at the end of the day, they go 300 feet. And that's where I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, it'd be cool, but why would I want to spend all that much more money, to still go 300 feet at 35 mile an hour?
Yeah, I agree. And to extend that line of thinking even beyond the spark ignition stuff into the diesel realm, that's what we're up against in the truck world. There's all this common rail technology and all the sophistication that can come into it. And at the drag strip, you've still got the dinosaur power warriors who are coming out there with P-pumps and whatnot and trying to be competitive against the common rails and can't necessarily do it. But when you flip the paradigm and go to the pulling side, at the highest level of the sport, the super stock diesel class, the common rails don't stand a chance against the Sigma pump trucks. They just don't. And there's some pretty experienced, pretty high level people in the diesel community who have done a lot of work with common rail injection systems. Mm-hmm. And they cannot figure out how to get to the power level that the old dumb stuff can, and also not break parts while they do it. It's not to say that it's never going to happen. It may, but right now it's stitching time. It's not there.
Right. Well, and that's where, even talking to the European pullers, those guys, whether it be super stock or whatever, they're just like the old stuff that is tried and true. It is just so consistent, that they can make lap after lap after lap. And then you get the guy that's got all the electronic stuff, and 1 out of 10 runs, it'll run, like nobody can touch it. But then he's always back complaining because he's having to, look at the laptop. He's having to, change all the electronics and stuff. And that's where at some point it will happen. I guarantee you it will. But with truck and tractor pulling, even diesel trucks and stuff here in the States, our demographic is just so much older that I don't think you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Some of that, but here's you've been in this realm, so you'll understand this. Let's look at the highest level of NHRA, the fuel classes.
Mm-hmm.
They're not EFI, they're not electronic, they're not even. They can have data monitoring, but they can't. All the clutch lockup, it's pneumatic, it's hydraulic, it's still a mechanical operation. It's not electronic. Why does it have to go electronic? Yes, it's new, it's great, it's fancy. There's tons of motorsports who love it. Why does it have to be? And is that good? Is it worth the spectacle? And is there not a workaround that just hasn't been found yet?
Well, and here's my complaint whenever I talk to all my buddies in NASCAR and stuff, and I ask them, I say, okay, the Cup cars went to EFI. Did that generate any more interest from the fans or sponsors? And all of them just shake their head, and they're like, the sponsors don't even know the difference between an EFI throttle body and a carburetor. And they're like, not too many fans really care as long as their favorite driver wins. So I was like, well, okay, but NASCAR hasn't done that, to the Busch Series, Xfinity, and the Cup Series or the Truck Series, and they were like, the fans still don't care. So I always keep hearing, oh yeah, the fans want to see all the modernization, and I'm like, well, where are all them fans at that are showing up?
I don't know. You can count me as one of the ex-NASCAR fans that hasn't given a crap since all the cars started looking the same.
Right.
You want me to be interested? Make them be carbureted, put them on bias ply tires, and make them actually look like what rolled off the factory assembly line, and maybe we'll have something. But I'm afraid that ship sailed probably about 23 years ago.
Yeah, well, and that's what they're trying to do, to say we're going to talk about NASCAR. That's what they're going to try and do in 2021 as far as bringing back, kind of a stock appearing, bringing back 18-inch wheels, because that's what comes on cars now. And then they're wanting to do a kind of a hybridization, an electronic driving device too on them cars. Well, that was a conversation I had last week with a couple guys. They're like, some of these farm tractors, at some point it will be a common theme, to buy a hybrid farm tractor. Why can't you build a hybrid pulling tractor? And I'm like, well, I don't know why you couldn't, but I don't think the state of truck and tractor pulling today, we can't even hang on to what we have right now, let alone just add expense to the pulling vehicle.
Yeah, that very conversation happened in our office this week. Tesla's coming out with an electric pickup truck. Rivian has one out there, and Tony comes and sticks his head in the office. He goes, "Hey, who wants to be a hero and buy one of these things and modify it so we can go pulling with it?" It's like, right. At first blush, you kind of laugh and go, well, yeah, cute story. But 15 years from now, is that where we're going to be? Because if you don't, there will be no other alternative. And Tony made the very comment. You can see the perception changing as the younger generation comes of age, where they look at you and go, "Ew, you have an internal combustion engine," right. And you just, if you don't, it's a balancing act. You got to follow along with what's going to keep it alive, but also what's going to keep it enticing and popular to those of us who've known it all along. And I don't know. Don Garlick's the perfect example. The man has climbed every mountain there is in drag racing, and what is he doing today? He's trying to make an electric dragster go quicker than anybody else because he sees it. The single biggest thing is consistency. Today there's this problem with instant gratification, this gimme now. If it doesn't work this year, then we got to try something else next year. What it fails to do when you do that is build that tradition and build that heritage, and it still does matter. I don't care how obsessed, and I'm point blank guilty of this, how obsessed we are with the very device I'm talking to you through tonight, and the gimme now. The idea of heritage matters, And my hometown fair is the second oldest continuous tractor pull in the U.S. Langford, New York's number one. They got us by, I think, 3 or 4 years. We still do see a lot of locals come out and compete, and we see a ton of people come out and watch because it's what Dad did, it's what Grandpa did, it's what great Grandpa did.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, my message to promoters and prospective promoters for this style of motorsport is, if you're going to make a commitment to it, don't expect the first year result. Don't expect the second year result. You're going to have to commit. You got to be all in, and you better be long term and establish that heritage, that tradition, that this is what happens. And events that have had that traditional success, Toma, Wisconsin, Bowling Green, Ohio, Langford, New York, Macon, Missouri. There's probably 100 others I could name that are escaping me right now. It works for them. So what are you missing? You're missing the heritage. It's the only thing you're missing. Because you can sign the contract. You can offer the purse. You can bring in whatever you want to bring in. But the piece that you're missing is that history. Mm-hmm. And it still matters. And I think it still resonates with people. And I think it's going to continue to resonate more so as we become so obsessed with instant now. Back to that pendulum idea. It's going to swing back to reaching for those touchstones, those common experiences. Hey, I did this. I want to share that moment with my kids because it excited me when I was a kid. It has to go back the other way at some point.
I'm not giving up hope on truck and tractor pulling. I think we have a very unique value, and you and I have talked about it. The only thing is that we're hurting ourselves and having a slow moving show.
Yeah. Yes. And that's another thing that falls on promoters, because I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that all these contracts are structured where the promoter's responsible for that piece. And there are companies out there are individuals you can go to streamline that if you're willing to pay for it. Mr. Miller out of Ohio, Jared Badoon and coming out of Michigan, and Todd Whipple, they'll come in and they'll build you a track. They'll keep it going. And I mean, you want 3-minute hooks, you can have it. But I also see, I don't know if you want to get into this, I also have noticed, I see within the higher echelons of the sanctioning bodies, they can be their own worst enemy too. And I don't know where this comes from. I don't know if they've had their butts chewed too many times from a puller about a track not being perfect or whatever, but there are certain events where I go to where I can see they are stopping people from even starting their pulling vehicle coming out on the track until it's just exactly how they want it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, that's the sport we're in. It's luck of the draw. You roll for those bingo balls or draw your poker chips, whatever you do. There should be no reason to be on the high side of a 4-minute hook, never mind 3.
Right. Oh, for sure. For sure. And that's where, I mean, well, just like my girlfriend, this was her first summer of ever, really going tractor pulling. And that was the first thing she noticed at a couple of the events. She was like, there's too much time. There's too much downtime, at the single track events. But then at the twin track events, she's like, that helps. But she hated when they ran both tracks pretty close to the same time, like it was almost a drag race. She's like, I can't concentrate on just one.
Yeah, and it is. And there's a very, very easy fix for that. You have one finish line flagman who cannot be in 2 places at once. Problem solved. Next, that one's easy.
Yeah, well, and that's, yeah. Well, the worst thing is that I told her was, I said, if they ever run 2 vehicles at the same time, I'm not getting the correct exposure for my sponsors.
Yeah, and yes. and I recognize there's places, there's events like Bowling Green. I can hear people jumping out of their seats right now. Oh my God, we got to get through 62 two-wheel drives and 57 super farms, and there's enough separation between the track where they can safely run concurrently. Go, 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 go. No, you're not serving your customer that way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't agree, and there's no reason you can't stay sufficiently in sync to flip flop and have something every 90 seconds. You can do it. You just got to want it.
So is there anybody you want to thank?
Absolutely. And to Tanya, first of all, of course, she permits me to do this. And most of the time when she's available to, she comes along with me, and she's befriended a lot of the competitors and has really adopted this lifestyle. And there are not enough words, nothing I could say that would be sufficient to express my gratitude to her for doing that. To my kids, Christian, Isabella, and Alexandria, for understanding their father's passion, and perhaps in their youth, without understanding, being a bit begrudging about it, they have tolerated and come to experience and learn and kept an open mind, and can see the passion and the wholesomeness of the sport. To Tony Burkhardt and everybody at Dirty Hooker Diesel for being behind me. Wade, Reg, and Ryan alone at Diesel Freak, they've been a big part of this deal for a long, long time. Walt and Tracy Sheeman at Prime Diesel and Automotive, they're behind what we're doing here. Ed Shoebridge, and he's my local ENS Motorsports, my local Senpico dealer. I use the product. I'm a customer, but he's also supported us quite a bit. Brian Lively at the Hook Magazine. Brian has been a very, very good friend for a long, long time, and has always provided advice, guidance, and encouragement for what we're doing. Down by you, somebody new that has come on board with Sidetracked and believes in what we're doing. Tristan Raymer and the gang at Lock Performance down there in Napanee, Indiana, have gotten involved with us too, and appreciate that. You yourself as well have really helped too. So to those individuals and many more besides the Sidetrack crew, what we are today, Nate Job, Carl Cross, you, Andy, Ryan Rusink, thank you to you guys for keeping my head in the game. Andy Schroeder, Pedal to Metal Pulling Hitches too, locally. He's on my tail all the time to get a podcast going again, and I do appreciate it. I told him to do it, and I thank him for following through.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to a new fan or to an existing fan, that I say, to get them out to an event again?
Whether you're new or existing, what I would tell you is, I don't care what form of motorsport you like. You cannot have a more intimate experience than what you get with truck and tractor pulling. You can't get closer for longer than you can doing this. If you're a petrol head of any kind, and you have forgotten what this is about, my challenge to you is, I want you to go to an event, and I want you to get as close as they will let you without throwing you out of the place, about 20 feet out from the starting line. I want you to stand there. Depending on the class, you may want earplugs, but I want you to stand there, close your eyes, and listen to a launch. If you don't have goosebumps on the back of your neck, I've got nothing for you. I can't capture you. But if you do, open your eyes back up and pay attention, because something is going to happen that you like.
Right. Well, and that's where girlfriend Angela, I told her, I said, next summer I want to wear her Fitbit for a couple of events just to see what my heart rate does. Because, I mean, once you get strapped in and everything else, I mean, my body, it actually like goes through like an adrenaline rush to where like I break out in a sweat. Like I get them kind of butterflies, and it's just like, oh, it's so hard to replicate. And even as a fan, it's like, you know, when you hear a pro stock tractor spooling up, it's like you can feel that pounding in your chest.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's what I try to explain to people. It's like you don't get that with other stuff.
You don't. There's a certain adrenaline junkie rush. You know, I've done my share of pulling, but certainly never in the caliber of equipment that you have sat in. But I can tell you that for a lot of people, public speaking is a tremendous fear. Well, okay, fine. I've been an announcer for 20 years. That doesn't mean that 3 minutes before showtime, and my wife will tell you this, I've got the biggest heebie-jeebies. I'm bouncing off the walls, running around.
You're telling me that you get a nervous pee too?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's the worst thing. As soon as I get suited up and strapped in, I got a nervous pee coming on.
Yeah, I go through the same thing that you guys as competitors do, and I'm sure you'll recognize this sentiment. Before it starts, I'm all wound up, but by 90 seconds into it, and you know we're into the show and now it's rolling, I'm the coolest person on the property. Now I'm good,
right?
But because you find that zone, you get into it, you live there, and you love it. That adrenaline shot, you can't replace it.
We're both passionate about our sport that we love. We hope it sticks around, and I'm glad that you're sticking around. But I think the very next time that I'm going to see you, I think we're going to be at PRI. That's where I already told you got to stop by the SCS booth. I was on the phone with Craig tonight, and I told him all about you. And he said, yeah, man, he said, we got to get more involved in these diesel truck guys. He said, I'm selling them a ton of parts. But he's like, you know, we keep trying to come up with something to get these younger people just at PRI energized. And I'm like, well, why don't we have a picture or a video of that DHD truck on the dyno that when it was on fire? I said, everybody will stop. Even if you don't even know what it is, that's cool.
Yeah, well, for as long as it went on for, and all the multiple angles I've got stills and video of, you could put it on loop for about 90 minutes and not have the same footage. It just, oh, man.
Well, and poor Tony, I hate to tell him, you know, we talked about it. When things go bad, those are your biggest highlights of your career.
He knows. Yeah, no, he totally knows that the publicity won from that you can't. Well, he bought it in a sense.
He paid for it. He paid for it.
Oh, he paid for it. But yeah, the publicity like that cannot be bought. And in the end, not only with the competition, it worked out, but also it was much more spectacular to watch than what really broke. As far as what was really, really fried in that whole deal, we lost a turbo and a wiring harness. I mean, the engine lived.
Mm-hmm.
So, you win some, you lose some.
Well, it made for a good T-shirt.
Yeah, several.
Yeah, well, all right, Charles. Well, I'm going to let you go here.
Sounds good, bud.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, thanks, man.
Yep, bye.
Lucas Oil Racing TV, the unlimited, exclusive, 24/7 on-demand streaming app made just for motorsports fans. See full, unedited broadcasts with special behind-the-scenes footage and interviews you won't see anywhere else. With Lucas Oil Racing TV, you control all the action. No more scheduling time to see your favorite races. You watch them when and where you want to. Lucas Oil Racing TV gives you everything from grassroots racing to professional competition, as well as exclusive uncut live events. You'll get endless hours of motorsports excitement at your command. For more information, visit lucasoilracing.tv.
So earlier today, I sat down with Fill-Rite. We kind of went over our long-term plans, our short-term plans, and they actually surprised me when they said that they really see this as being an exceptionally long-term deal, which is pretty awesome because, I mean, even on the professional level, you know, to say NASCAR and all that, a lot of those guys don't get very long-term contracts. So that's pretty cool that they're willing to invest not only in me, but invest in the sport of truck and tractor pulling. Hopefully we can get some other companies to do the same. But they've actually got a lot of plans for us as far as this winter. They got us going to Dallas, Phoenix, Vegas. There's some other little trade shows in there to do displays, and I'm pretty excited about that because it's one thing to have those people come out to to our events, but now we get to go be part of theirs, and it's going to be pretty neat to see everybody's reaction to a mini rod. I mean, a lot of people that they don't know quite what it is. They know it's small and they know it's all motor, so it's got to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to meeting all the salespeople, all their distributors, and it should be a good time this winter. But right now, we're actually gearing up for PRI, and you heard us talk about that in the earlier interview with Charles. And PRI is actually performance racing industry. It's actually anything motorsports, anything racing related. You can pretty much find it during that trade show. It's actually down at Lucas Oil Stadium, down at the Indiana Convention Center, and for that whole week down there, it is a who's who list of people, and it's a lot of fun. But we'll actually be working the SCS booth with Craig Sage and Probel Bell Housings. So if you're ever down that show, be sure to stop by and say hi, introduce yourself if we've never met you. And then we're also going to see Chris from 6B Apparel. He'll be down there. Mark at Flat Out Gaskets. He's always quite a hoot. And then Excess Batteries, we'll be talking to them guys for a little bit and thanking them for everything they've done for us, as well as there's several other companies, some smaller companies down there that we always got a lot of old friends, so it should be fun. But I guess I just want to say thank you to Charles for coming on today, and thank you guys for listening. We've got a lot of people wanting to get on here, so hopefully we can keep it entertaining for you, and hopefully not keep these shows too long. I know this is kind of an extended version today, so if you don't like it, let us know. If you do like it, I guess let us know. But as I say, thanks for listening, and keep your stick on the ice. See ya.